on AM 560, The Answer.
Get the latest weather, traffic, and news updates online at 560theanswer.com. Now, from the Signature Bank Studios.
Insert Democrat socialist here.
Runs the Democratic House floor for 30 plus years running. He's promising this and he's stealing that. Where can you get that kind of money? He's using your house like his own piggy bank. You ought to know by now. You can pay off your house here in Illinois, but you can never keep up with the taxes. Oh, how it's always been the plan to have a taxpayer pay, no doubt. Not a matter of if anymore, but when you're moving out. I said, when you're moving out.
Top of the morning, Dan Proft here. The theme music means it's time for our weekly conversation with Ted Dabrowski, formerly of wirepoints.com, all things, wirepoints.org, all things Illinois policy related. Subbing for Ted today is his running mate, as we've talked about Ted, and we've talked to Ted about his run for governor. He is running for governor. You have to have a running mate when you run for governor these days. You run as a ticket in the primary, in case you had forgotten, change that happened a couple of cycles ago. And his running mate is an emergency room physician from the suburbs. Her name is Dr. Carrie Mendoza, and I want to get Carrie Mendoza's reaction to this for openers. Marianne Ahern over at NBC5, one of the Bouvier sisters, since Carol Maureen retired. She's going solo. She's doing these strolls with politicians. It's so homey. You get real authentic. You cut through it. It's not formal. So you're just a couple of gal pals having a conversation. She did it on the lakefront with Jelly Belly. And now she's done it with BLM Brandon Johnson. He's the mayor of Chicago, don't you know? And she had a question for BLM Brandon that I want to put to Dr. Carrie Mendoza. Here it was.
I asked the governor when I walked with him, would he advise his friends to take the L from O'Hare at night? Would you?
Yeah, I've done it before.
Would you tell someone hop on at 8 or 9 o'clock at night?
Yes, absolutely. I've done it before. Look,
Mayor, I've done it. It's scary.
Listen, I have not always been mayor. Do we have challenges in Chicago? Absolutely. But ridership is up 11%. We had over 300 million riders just last year, and we're going to continue to make the necessary investments to continue to grow a world-class transportation system.
Yeah, and that's going to be more money. People, where is that coming from?
That's something that we're working out with in the state of Illinois. I have pushed and I've spoken with the General Assembly members, the Speaker of the House, the Senate President, around ways in which we can have more revenue so that we can ensure that our public transportation system is fully funded. I'm on the record of pushing for that, and I fully expect the General Assembly is going to deliver on behalf of the people of Chicago.
And then Marianne Ahern and BLM Brandon were mauled by a pit bull. No, thankfully they were not. It seemed like that was possible, though. It must have been in Brandon Johnson's neighborhood. The transit system, I mean, that's a hot one. First of all, I would, of course Brandon Johnson would ride the L from O'Hare now because he's got 150 cops that are protecting him, so that helps. Makes things easier. But in terms of where's the money coming from, the federal government just put a freeze on about $2 billion for Chicago Transit because Brandon Johnson and his buddy JB and BJ, this tandem, are obstructionists when it comes to federal law enforcement enforcing federal laws. So that's a problem. And the state of Illinois has $2 billion to backfill that with. The ridership's up 11%. That's like talking about, the enrollment at CVS being up 11% after it was down 90%. Obviously, the transit systems in Chicagoland are sucking wind in addition to burning through cash they don't have. But the safety question, let's start there. Dr. Carrie Mendoza, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.
Oh, Dan, thank you so much. I really appreciate it, and I'll try and be a great stand-in for Ted.
not that you're going out to the suburbs, so you're not necessarily going downtown, but you fly into O'Hare and you want to meet your husband and family for dinner in Chicago, let's just say hypothetically. I'm not sure who's really doing that anymore, but let's say hypothetically, you're going to take the L?
Of course not. Normal people have normal, feedback loops that know, hey, this is dangerous. This isn't a good idea. So, that clip is just outrageously sad because, as you mentioned, he's got, an army of police and bodyguards around him. And I know Marianne Ahern, if she shows up with her cameras, people aren't assaulting them. A good analogy is, when you're in the hospital and you're working, we have things called never events, which are safety events. If there's anything like giving the wrong medicine, if someone's doing the wrong side surgery, these are extreme alerts that everybody figures out what went wrong so it won't happen again. And what's outrageous about Brandon Johnson and Pritzker with the soft on crime is that each individual person that gets assaulted is a human being, and they just act like, hey, who cares? The numbers are less. But that's not how we deal with safety events. So it's just pathetic.
Well, and from the suburban perspective, I mean, this is your first run for office, like it is Ted's. So there's a little bit of an outside the bubble perspective, which is always healthy. And I just wonder, like, how this, in the suburban circles in which you travel, how they're reacting to these antics, to the clashes in front of the ICE facility in Broadview, to even a North Shore Politico that we talked about earlier in the show. This guy who's the Schakowsky-backed candidate to replace Laura Fine in the state Senate from Winnetka, who is doxing ICE agents and telling people to, call the residents in Wilmette and tell them that, they shouldn't allow ICE to rent hotel rooms from the residents in. I mean, it just this behavior doesn't exactly scream maturity, and I just wonder how it's being received among the well-to-do suburbanites, some of whom who otherwise pride themselves on being mature and adults.
Well, I think there's, different categories. I think the example with, doxing people, this person who wants to take over Jan Schakowsky's seat, these are like the luxury belief people, we call them. The people who, say these things, but they don't at all live in the consequences of these policy failures. It's the group that decamped to Florida during COVID, but were, criticizing people like Ted and myself who are trying to, reopen the schools, but they're down in Florida criticizing, so it's a lot of just hypocrisy, which obviously is extremely dangerous, but they don't live in the consequences. They're taking Ubers wherever, so they're not on the CTA or they don't work in an emergency department where people who are beat up are coming, to their office. Those are the people that I deal with when I'm at work. Then there's, another category of, regular people in the suburbs who just think that this is outrageous and don't want this weak leadership, this soft on crime attitude. Then they know it's dangerous and they don't want their kids growing up in this environment, and they want new leadership. So the luxury belief people are more than happy because they get some type of, cachet in their neighborhood. But the rest of us who live in the normal world know that it's totally wrong.
Well, it's funny, sort of the juxtaposition there that you're presenting. So the people with luxury beliefs that take these rational positions, so they, out of sort of a noblesse oblige sense. And then the flip side is you who are actually in an emergency room setting treating people that are less well-to-do, to be polite about it. So you're on the front lines actually helping oftentimes indigent patients who need quality health care, where they are just, to use the tired old term, just sort of virtue signaling beliefs that have no implications for them and provide no benefits for anybody else.
Yeah, absolutely. And they're also the ones that, if they need to go to the emergency department for something, they're calling ahead to see if they can cut in the line, or calling someone they know in the hospital that can get them in sooner. So it's just a lot of hypocrisy, and most people really just want safe schools, safe streets. They want, to make a good living. They want to be in a positive environment with great leaders. But the luxury belief crowd is really, really corrupt and obviously dangerous, as you see, because when they're holding the power, they're really not, self-correcting at all. And they feel that this gives them a sense of purpose and a sense of worth, which is really, really, horrible for everybody else.
Well, sure. I mean, is there any bigger, and I mean that on multiple levels, any bigger luxury belief person in the country than J.B. Pritzker? I mean, he's the poster boy for it.
Yeah, Gavin Newsom, that's the crowd where, they've got, everything in terms of, monetary, resources. Personally, they don't, want for anything. And then they're getting into politics and, regular people's issues. They just don't care, because they would have to go against their base. In contrast to, President Trump, who is not Mr. Luxury Beliefs. Yes, he's a billionaire. Yes, he's built businesses, done great. But look at what he's doing. He really resonates with most of America, people who are working class, people who are common sense, people who are entrepreneurs like Charlie Kirk. He recognizes talent. He knows how to fix and build things. So it's not just, being wealthy. It's what are your core beliefs? When are you going to go against the crowd? And it's easy for someone up here on the North Shore to be, I'm going to dox these people. But it's much harder to stand up and say, you know what, this is wrong. We don't have to live this way. We can do better. So people really want that moral courage, as you can see with our president and all the leadership behind him.
Speaking of President Trump, for those who don't know, you are a Jewish woman. And I wanted to get your reaction to the release of the hostages and this, this hopeful note for lasting peace in the Middle East.
I mean, it's just incredible to add to the list of the incredible things President Trump has done. But obviously, as someone who's Jewish, and I have 3 kids in college, and luckily, they've had no issues on their college campuses. But, the rise in anti-Semitism because of just the illiberal poison that's been pumped through the schools is really, really, scary. I wear a Star of David. I refuse to take it off. But, you walking around here, you never know if you're going to be assaulted by someone who has really been taken over by this poison that Pritzker has pumped through the schools here. So seeing the hostages released and just seeing the incredible job that President Trump has done, he knows how to bring teams together. He knows how to solve difficult problems. And it's really reassuring as someone who is Jewish and has a Jewish family and Jewish children. And so his fight against anti-Semitism here in our country is just really reassuring. And, we need a change of leadership in Illinois, because we have to take out this anti-Semitism that's been pumped through everywhere in Illinois. And Pritzker really hasn't, done anything about it. Again, he's along with this crowd pumping the poison through the schools.
Well, it's interesting, too, because there's so many on the other side of the aisle that have at least shown the good sense to give President Trump credit for this peace framework. We've heard from Rahm Emanuel. We've heard from members of Congress on the left, like Dan Goldman, Tim Kaine, Hillary Clinton, of all people, all complimentary. And yet J.B. Pritzker, he can't muster any commentary. There's this cohort within that party that will never give Trump the credit for anything, will never find ways to forge common ground with people who they otherwise disagree with, even when there is apparent agreement. I mean, it's, at least it's voiced that we want the same thing, but they just can't bring themselves. They're just such small people. They can't bring themselves to acknowledge reality. And as I mentioned, Pritzker is a case study in that.
Absolutely. I mean, I looked high and low yesterday. I'm sure you did as well. I couldn't find Pritzker at all thanking President Trump. So it's just weak leadership. And for all his talk about, lowering the temperature and not being divisive, it's like, here's a golden opportunity to just thank the president. We've taught our kids that, you respect the presidency. You may disagree with policies. You need to learn how to verbally argue about the disagreements, but you respect the presidency. During the Obama years, I didn't agree with President Obama, but my kids got the message that you respect the presidency and you debate the policies. And so it's just sad, again, in an environment where we have a whole online world where a younger generation has learned to discuss issues by just throwing barbs online and don't really have a sense of face-to-face discussions, to have Pritzker leading our state but not be able to even thank President Trump for his leadership. He just looks so small and so weak. And it's just sad, and that's why we really need new leadership. We need, Illinoisans to vote him out. A third term is just outrageous.
Well, especially for someone who otherwise voices support for the state of Israel sometimes and quietly, but just can't bring himself. It just says a lot about his character. So much of his behavior really does. But before we let you go, I wanted to get your perspective professionally as an ER doctor that we mentioned, sort of how that informs and maybe motivated you to enter the political arena.
Sure. I've been practicing emergency medicine for 25 years in just all different environments. And I just see everybody, rich, poor, but all types of issues going on. And so I think just a lot of the policy failures with healthcare have motivated me to really pay attention to policy. But I think as, the illiberal policies were really infiltrating with DEI politics, seeing that in healthcare is really, really concerning. And that's one of my motivations, because historically, anytime politics is really steeped into healthcare, is just a sign of a very, very sick society and always ends up hurting people, like whether it's, Tuskegee, where they're experimenting on, airmen, injecting them with syphilis but not treating them, up in, lobotomies, and then up into here with COVID. And then, of course, gender dysphoria treatments, confusing kids and chemically castrating young kids and surgically mutilating them. I really said, I need to get involved and figure out how to be a positive force. So I've worked on policy in red states like Texas. I helped get a law passed that, gives parental access to medical records for kids under 18. We don't have that in Illinois. So I got involved because you need to have positive change. And then I think with COVID, the draconian measures, totally different than what was going on in the ER. We could talk about that at a separate time. But the restrictions for my kids to go to school were more than for me in the hospital, where I'm interacting with COVID patients every day. So I met Ted working on some of these issues up on the North Shore, and I feel that, you have to step up to participate in positive change. And I think, Ted really, really knows the policies. He's got the right temperament to lead the state. And so I've been honored to ask, to help him, talk about these issues. And really, I think there's just a big, big opportunity for change in Illinois. So I feel I have to step up.
Dr. Carrie Mendoza, she is Ted Dabrowski's running mate, running for lieutenant governor. You can get more information about her candidacy and their ticket generally. tedforillinois.com is the website. Dr. Carrie Mendoza, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much. Have a great day.
You too, and she joined us on the Turnkey.pro answer line.
The more you listen, the more you'll know. This is Chicago's Morning Answer. Morning Answer on AM 560. The Answer.
When the power goes out, life stops. Heat, AC, fridge, phones, all gone. But with a Generac home standby generator from True Power Generator Service, your home powers back on automatically, so you're never left in the dark. Book your consultation today at TruePowerGenerator.com. That's TruePowerGenerator.com. Plus, 560 listeners get a free 10-year extended warranty. Terms and conditions apply. Call for details. True Power Generator Service and Generac. It's not just a generator, it's a